Worse.
Trump has this authority because of home rule, the limited form of self governance that D.C. has been under for the last half century. The Home Rule Act allows D.C.
We'll call the School Board of St. Lucie County regular meeting to order, August the 12th. It is now 5 p.m. Would you please stand with me to do the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for the Kids at Hope Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. I am committed to search for all the talent, skills, and intelligence that exists in all children and youth. I believe all children are capable of success, no exceptions. You may be seated. Thank you. All right, the first thing we will do on our agenda is call our public hearing, and we will receive comments. At this time, we'll open up that public hearing to receive comments on the proposed adoption of the 25-26 Student Code of Conduct. Following any of the comments, we will ask the board if they have any questions or comments. So is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on this behalf? Seeing none, Superintendent, may we have your recommendations?
I recommend the board adopt the proposed 2025-26 Student Code of Conduct.
I'm sorry, Superintendent. Board members, are there any comments on that item? Okay, seeing there's none, the superintendent has, his recommendation is so moved by Mr. Ingersoll.
Second.
Second by Ms. Harrison. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0. ESOL, anyone here from ESOL? Mr. Freeman, I don't see him in the audience. Okay, so no ESOL report for the evening. CWA, I do not see a representative from there. Am I missing them anywhere? Okay, so there's no report from CWA. We will move on to our agenda, consent agenda. May I have a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Ingersoll, second by Ms. Hawley. Discussion, anyone? I'm sorry, again, Superintendent. May we have your recommendation?
I recommend the board approve the consent agenda as submitted.
Superintendent has recommended that the board approve the consent agenda. At this time, any discussion? Okay, seeing there is none, may I entertain a vote? So moved, Mr. Ingersoll. Second again, Ms. Hawley. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, we're moving right along. And we will, we have the informational reports have been provided. Board members, for your information only, no action will be taken on the Charter School monthly financial reports. They are solely for your information. Superintendent and staff reports at this time, Superintendent.
All right, board members, just FYI, you do have the a flyer for the ribbon cutting for the Legacy High School. It's going to be Tuesday the 26th of August. That's at 9 a.m., and that is in lieu of our workshop. Our workshop will actually be at Legacy High School, so we'll be all set up there. Super excited. We had a very successful opening of Legacy yesterday. I want to thank Dr. Mills for joining me over at Legacy for the start of the day. I also want to thank all of our board members for attending the kind of the kickoff to the school year at our various transportation sites. I know the board members were there to greet our bus drivers, and a lot of happy faces there. Also wanted to recognize our board as well for the August 4th kickoff. We had a raucous crowd of 850 or so faculty members from various schools, and what a great time we had. I wanted to thank our board members for being there and also sharing in that experience with all the folks that were there. Also wanted to thank our elected officials that were there along with our sheriff. We had a number of our local elected officials that attended, so I wanted to thank them as well. We just also want to encourage our families. Here comes the bus app. If your child rides a bus, it's a great way to track the buses and make sure you're aware of where your child's bus is in real time. It is hurricane season. I Googled it today. The height of the hurricane season is the middle of August. We're in the middle of August through the middle of October. So we've got 2 months, and we're already monitoring Tropical Storm Erin that is projected to be our first hurricane. So I will be sending the board updates as we get them daily from the National Hurricane Center, so that we're already monitoring that as well. Wanted to remind all of our students out there, attendance is still our priority. We had a significant number of students that were attending. Almost 1,000 students were in attendance every day last year. We had a significant improvement again in attendance, and that is the relentless nature of our teachers and our school staff members that are reaching out to those families and making sure that those kids come to school. And also that the law has changed for our K through 8 students with regards to cell phones. And cell phones need to be off and away, and we remind our families that the cell phones at school are a distraction, and we want to make sure that we have all of our students focused on learning. With that being said, we had a great year last year. We spent the summer celebrating RA, as you can see on our new logos, which I'm really pleased with. Thank you to our communications team for the design. Looks fantastic. You'll see all of our vehicles, the white fleet, have all of our new logos on them. And we earned our first A as a school district last year, but it's the first of many. I want to thank the continued support of the board as you advocate for our children and also advocate for our employees. And I'm very excited for what 25-26 holds. And Madam Chair, that concludes my remarks.
Thank you for that report, Superintendent Prince. Attorney report from Attorney Scott Cole.
No report.
No report. Thank you, Mr. Cole. Okay, we do have some action items, board members. The first action item is 20.1, is the approval of board members out of district travel requests to attend the GFC SB meeting, August the 28th through August 29th. It will be in St. Petersburg, Florida. And we have a board member, Ms. Debbie Hawley, that will be attending, or we would desire for her to attend for official board, school board business, and that said travels will comply with the rules of the state Florida Board of Education. Can I have a motion and a second for that?
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Ingersoll, second by Ms. Harrison. Okay, any discussion regarding this, board? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Our next action item here will be 20.2, is the approval of board members out-of-district travel requests. Once again, this one will be to attend the FSBA Policy Governance and Bargaining 101 forums. This will take place September the 18th through September the 19th in Gainesville, Florida. And we do have a board member, Ms. Teresa Harrison. She will be attending for the official school board business, and it also complies this travel with the rules of the state of Board of Education. May I have a motion and second for this?
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Ingersoll. Second, Ms. Hawley. Any discussion, board? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This motion carries 5-0 once again. Now, board, we want to talk about the appointment of the Citizen Advisory Committee member. So I'm going to need a motion and a second at this time.
Make a motion to accept Mrs. Harrison's appointee.
Mrs. Harrison's appointee is Casey Blair. Can I get a second? Second. Ms. Hawley seconded. Any discussion, board? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And now we want to talk about the External Auditor Selection Committee Chairperson. Can I have a motion and second for discussion?
Madam Chair, I nominate Ms. Holly.
Second?
Ms. Hawley, are you willing to accept that motion? And on second, okay. Okay, any discussion, board? Seeing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Congratulations, Ms. Holly.
She loves it. Thank you, Ms. Hawley, for your acceptance of that. Okay, at this time now we go into let me see, do I have the board? Give me a moment, please. Board reports, board members. Anyone would like to report? I think I'll start with Mr. Ingersoll.
No report.
No report, Mr. Ingersoll. Ms. Hawley?
Mr. Superintendent, can I ask one question? Are we going to be getting the first 10-day count, student?
You'll get it as soon as this meeting is over. And you'll get it every day after that.
10 days.
Yeah, okay. Yes, yes. Yes.
A lot of them in the last 2 days taking part in some Tunnels of Hope. And the Tunnels of Hope really prepped me up and get me going for the school year, because to see the kids and see their excitement, some of them are full of trepidation, but as I told one mom this morning, she was standing out on the sidewalk crying, and her little one was going in crying, and I said, I guarantee you, by the time he hits the door, his tears will stop, so it's going to be okay. And she said, thank you for saying that. I needed to hear that. So it's just really been an experience. A great experience. Sorry, Doug. And I encourage any of you that have an opportunity to go and take part in those tunnels in the mornings. It's a great support system. Thanks to all of our schools for all they've done to be ready for this week to get here. Every place I've been, it seems like a seamless time, and that is the sign of a well-run district. So thanks to everyone for that.
Thank you for your report, Ms. Hawley. Ms. Harrison?
Just one question. I'm wondering if there's someplace everybody can look for the Tunnel of Hope schedule. No, I mean, not just for us, but for the others that want to participate. I have it, but is there someplace, Superintendent Gent, where people can get involved for because it is amazing, and if you've never been able to participate.
Prince, this is Superintendent
Did I just
Prince.
call him Superintendent Gent?
Yes, you did.
I am so sorry.
If Mr. Jen is watching this right now,
I'm
he's-
sorry, he
love him.
probably
We love
did
you,
love
Mr.
that,
Gent.
so I am so sorry.
we'll get it on our website.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Harrison, thank you for that question, and we got that taken care of. Ms. Richardson, your report, please.
I'm going to make sure my mic is on. So, welcome back to the A-Team. As we begin this new year, I'm filled with optimism about what lies ahead. Your outstanding performance last year has set a new standard, and I'm confident you'll continue to exceed expectations with the same dedication and excellence. In my report tonight, I want to spotlight the moments in my journey this month that truly exemplified, to me, the district cooperative spirit and commitment to student success. During my recent visit to Northport Elementary, I witnessed something noteworthy. The school had just conducted summer camp and faced a tight deadline to prepare for their upcoming open house. What could have been a stressful situation became a powerful demonstration of the district's unity. Principal Ross Day graciously showed me through the campus, making sure to emphasize his gratitude for the maintenance team who came from across the district to support Northport. Despite having their own deadlines, these teams did not hesitate to lend a helping hand. Their willingness to step up embodied the spirit Bill Withers. Does anybody know who Bill Withers is? Well, he captured in his song, Lean on Me. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on. If there is a load you have to bear, I'm right up the road. I'll share your load. That's what the maintenance department in all the other district schools did for Northport. They shared the load. This collective effort ensured Northport was ready for their important day, and it reminded me why teamwork is at the heart of everything we do in the district. Northport, I'm sure you had a great open house. I want to thank the maintenance crew that gave a helping hand, Matthew Weber and Mr. O'Leary for stepping up to the plate. In closing, schools are best kept secret. We have some schools that are what I consider best kept secrets, and there are schools that are hidden gems. St. Lucie Elementary falls into the latter category, a true gem in our district. Their open house, they had an open house or block party on Saturday, and it was nothing short of inspiring, and it gave me a fresh perspective on our district's impact on the community. The enthusiasm was evident from the start. Though the event began at 10 a.m., dedicated parents were lined up by 8 o'clock. There were pictures of these parents and students in line at 8 o'clock in the morning. What unfolded was a celebration of community partnership. Nearly 600 backpacks were distributed to families. IRSC cosmetology student provided complimentary haircuts. A generous local barber donated his Saturday for boys' haircuts. Florida Community Health Center offered school physicals and immunization, ensuring students were ready for the first day. A nonprofit partner supplied free school uniforms. Social media buzz attracted a new sponsor from West Palm Beach, who was motivated by the hard work he saw on social media that he pledged his support via sponsorship. The local food bank contributed fresh produce for families. Free hygiene products were distributed. District transportation and nutrition teams shared valuable resources with parents. 2 local businesses made surprise deliveries of additional backpack and groceries. Community engagement continued strongly until 2 p.m. While I've observed our district from an administrative lens over the years, this experience offered me a parent's perspective on a large level at a school event of this nature. The result: my respect and admiration for Principal Potenza, Assistant Principal Mendoza, and Assistant Principal Gomez reached new heights. I've asked leadership here in the district, what is the culture of the district? And I've received many different answers. However, after witnessing St. Lucie Elementary in action, I can clearly articulate, I can clearly say what I perceive as their culture. The culture is rooted in family values, mutual respect, and genuine care. The authentic connections between Principal Potenza and families were evident. These parents were invested advocates who protected and championed their school community. I met one of the moms there who, she goes on social media, and if there's anything negative about St. Lucie Elementary, she set the record straight. She's not having it. She's not having it. And there is such a connection between the parents and the educators at that school. It was just, to me, just so amazing. You know, they just connected. It was like a good fit. Principal Potenza shared a story that perfectly captures this spirit. Last Christmas, when bicycle donations, she got a donation of bicycles just before Christmas Day. So she got her husband up Christmas morning, and she told him he was going to be Santa Claus. So they went out, personally delivered these bicycles to children in the school neighborhood. This wasn't an official duty. It was a heartfelt gesture that reflects the true calling of education. Education is not a 9-to-5 job. It's just not a 9-to-5 job. Last Saturday events demonstrated that education extends far beyond traditional school hours. It's a lifestyle and a passion, qualities I witnessed throughout St. Lucie Elementary's team. I must acknowledge Linda Tapia, who is a district employee. She served as the cornerstone of this initiative. Her tireless coordination brought together the village, the community partners for one unified purpose, which was supporting our students. Mrs. Tapia's commitment to both our students and the broader community deserves special recognition. Mrs. Tapia and the team from her department who showed out, and made this event possible, my heartfelt thank you. By the end of the day, the event, we achieved something remarkable. Students were comprehensively prepared for their first day, physically, emotionally, and academically. Our parents left the open house with essential needs met and resources in hand. This success reflects the extraordinary effort of Mrs. Potenza, Mrs. Mendoza, and Mrs. Gomez, the St. Lucie Elementary School educators, and Mrs. Tapia, whose dedication transformed lives and strengthens our entire community. Thank you does not do justice to how grateful I am to you. St. Lucie Elementary, the rising stars, anchored in greatness. I just wanted to say again, thank you. And this is the end of my report.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. I had the opportunity of going to Legacy yesterday morning, our brand-new high school, as Dr. Prince mentioned. And Dr. Prince, you did a wonderful interview. It's playing all over Facebook and everywhere, and just talking about the... Yes, so we had the colors on yesterday. But Mr. Smith, you are in our prayers as you open up Legacy. The children looked like they were very nervous, and they were on their best behavior. And so we look forward to the great things that's going to come out of Legacy, as well as all of our rest of our schools. Northport also had the privilege of going to Northport. Miss Holly and I, and we did the Tunnel of Hope, and that was a joy. It brought great smiles to our faces as we greeted the different children. I want to especially thank our community, our after-school programs. I want to take time out to thank all of our summer camps, because we are a village and we are all doing this together. And because of their work throughout the summer, our children, many of our children will not fall behind as they start school. As of yesterday, they will come prepared. But also we had organizations out there, so many of them. It was incredible how many people out there want to help. And we had organizations out there that was giving out the book bags, and also free physicals, and had the privilege of going to the Defense Center. The line went all the way around the corner, and most of the parents, and I would say the majority, 90% or more, spoke either just Spanish or Creole, and the children had to do the interpretation for them. So we are a large community of Hispanic and Creole-speaking children. In fact, They're like one-third, I believe, of our district, and many of those children have no English spoken in the home. So for us to get that A as a community, we have really worked hard, our teachers, our administrators, because it's hard enough to learn academics. It's even harder when you can't speak the language. I went to Haiti for 25 years, back and forth, and did mission work there for many years. And I was lost in that country. So you can imagine what people go through when they come here to this country, and how important it is that we help them, which here in St. Lucie County, that's exactly what we're doing. And I think that's it for my comments for this evening. Thank you so much, those of you that are listening, and also those of you that are here this evening. I know your day has been long, so we won't keep you much longer. But before we go, we do have an unscheduled speakers request form here. So at this time, may I have Ms. Janet Maxwell come to the podium? Ms. Maxwell, you have 3 minutes, and our attorney will keep time with that. And welcome to the podium. Please give your name and board members, all heads clear? We are adjourned.
Yeah, the federal government has all my information, all my data. This is just one more thing.
I think you have to think about it not just in the airport, but beyond. What kind of culture are we creating? Do we want a consent culture when it comes to the use of AI technologies, where you actually have an option in what's used or what's not used? In addition to that, Department of Homeland Security has documented data breaches where face data has been leaked. So it's not even a hypothetical situation that this data can be compromised. And unlike a password, which you can change, it's a lot harder to change your face.
What advice would you give to travelers who may prefer to opt out of this facial recognition system, given some of the challenges that came up in your research?
I would say it's so important that those who feel comfortable opting out continue to do so, especially for those who feel they've been robbed of that choice. Each and every time you opt out is a vote for consent culture, and it also shows other people that they have the option to opt out. So I do think it goes beyond just the individual, and it's about the collective. And I also understand if you are in a scenario where you don't feel comfortable opting out, it is completely understandable, right? So I say this is an option for those who do think they are in a position where they can make that stand. And the other thing that we hear quite often is how empowered people feel after they have a successful opt-out, because so often we can feel a bit powerless in that line while we're waiting with everybody else being herded through and so forth. And so those are the experiences we have heard based on traveler stories and testimonials.
Joy Bulamwini at the Algorithmic Justice League. Jesus Alvarado produced this episode. I'm Megan McCarty Carino, and that's Marketplace Tech. This is APM.
Summertime, it's hot. Too hot to clear away extra stuff that piles up. Let the WQCS Vehicle Donation Program clear it out with free pickup. They'll take away vehicles, watercraft, even riding mowers and some heavy equipment. Make arrangements while enjoying your AC. From our homepage, WQCS.org, click Donate to get started. You'll get a possible tax credit. WQCS gets your support with no sweat.
Here at 88.9 WQCS, we welcome your programming comments. If you'd like to make a comment or a suggestion, please send us an email to comments@wqcs.org. And thank you.
Forget text messages. Catherine Kuchenbecker is developing tech to reach out and touch you.
You could send not just a little buzz, but like a pat or eventually a caress or a congratulatory one, a high five that comes in over your chat.
Ideas about our skin and how we interact with the world. That's next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR.
Every Wednesday at noon on WQCS.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Mary Louise Kelly.
And I'm Ari Shapiro. Rooftop solar panels can be a way to cut your electricity bills and take personal action on climate change, but they can be expensive and overwhelming to install. So what if you could just set up some panels in your backyard or hang them off a balcony? In Germany, these kinds of solar panels are widespread. Now there's a movement trying to bring them to the U.S. Laura Clivens reports from KQED in San Francisco.
Matt Milner lives in Berkeley, California, and he has a problem. Electricity rates in the state are really high, so he'd like to generate some of his own power. But getting rooftop solar is a big undertaking. Then he heard about plug-in solar.
The permitting side of getting rooftop solar is daunting to many people, and the huge financial commitment, whereas this is just like, oh, they'll come on a Friday morning and install your panels, and then you're good to go.
Plug-in solar uses just a few panels. They're connected to a gadget that converts solar power to the kind of electricity used in your home, with a cord that plugs into a standard outlet. The cost for Milner is under $1,700, compared to tens of thousands of dollars for a traditional array.
This kind of allows us to dip our toe in a little bit without having a huge financial cost and, see how it works for us.
The panels were installed by a nonprofit called Bright Saver. Co-founder Kevin Chu says their goal is to bring portable plug-in solar to the U.S. market.
When it becomes that simple to basically just go to Walmart or go to Costco and buy one of these things, that's kind of where I think the world can get to in 3 or 4 years.
He says a small system with 2 panels can cover about a fifth of the average Californian's electricity needs, like your refrigerator and devices. But there's a problem. In most of the U.S., it's not entirely legal to just set this up and plug it in. The technology is so new here, it's not in most electrical codes. Here's Kevin Chu.
There's kind of these big gaps where it's not clear if it's certainly not that you can't do this, but it's also not clear that you can.
To put in a system right now, you have to jump through the same regulatory hoops and fees as if you were setting up a full rooftop solar array. That's in part because of safety concerns. If they're installed incorrectly, plug-in panels could cause a fire or endanger utility workers. But Bright Saver and other organizations want to make it simpler. Utah is already doing that. Last year, State Representative Raymond Ward read about the millions of solar panels hanging from balconies in Germany and thought, why not here?
If a person wants to buy a product, we should not have our regulatory apparatus make it so that it's just not available to them.
He wrote a bill that would allow plug-in solar without registration, if it meets certain codes and safety standards. The bill passed unanimously. Ward, a Republican, says the tech has appeal across the political spectrum.
On a blue scale, we would say this is clean power. This does not produce CO2. It is renewable energy. On red terms, I think you would say if I can do something that gets people what they need instead of trying to set up a government program to try and help take care of their problem, that would be desirable.
Plug-in solar arrays can only cover a slice of overall energy demand, even if everyone had them. Dan Kamen is an energy professor at Johns Hopkins University.
There's no question this balcony solar is a small piece.
Still, he says, every bit helps reduce planet warming emissions, and every array is a conversation starter.
What we do is not just signaling to others, but it's signaling to ourselves. And by that, what I mean is, it's environmental education, and that's priceless.
Back in Berkeley, Matt Milner has 2 new 6-foot-tall solar panels leaning against his backyard fence. Bright Saver co-founder Rupert Mayer gets ready to plug them in.
Big moment.
And electricity from the panels flows into Milner's house.
We're basically carbon neutral right now then.
For the moment, absolutely. Yes, we are. Yes. You are running your house on clean, free energy from your backyard.
Something that could become more common if other states adopt legislation like Utah's. For NPR, I'm Laura Clivens in Berkeley.
Pickup trucks in the U.S. have gotten expensive. So Ford got a lot of attention this week when it promised a new truck by 2027 for a relative steal, just $30,000. And not just any pickup, an electric pickup. NPR's Camila Domonoske was in Louisville, Kentucky for the company's big announcement and brings us this story.
Standing on a sweltering stage in the heart of the Louisville assembly plant, Ford CEO Jim Farley said the vehicle they'll build here next is a big challenge.
To create an affordable vehicle that delights customers in every way that matters. Design and innovation, flexibility, interior space, driving pleasure, and lower cost of ownership.
Delight. That's how car executives think about EVs. Roomy, fun to drive, no gas to buy. Those are benefits that come when you don't need an engine. But it's proven tricky to build that for cheap. Electric trucks in the U.S. today cost from $50,000 to over $100,000. But Ford designers say they have radically simplified this vehicle's design. The battery is part of the structure. They'll build the truck in 3 big chunks that are assembled separately, then combined. Ford executives say those changes, many of which are specific to an EV and wouldn't work for a gas car, cut costs significantly. Sam Abdul-Samad with the market research and communications firm Telemetry says that Ford's price point is at least plausible.
Most of what we know so far about what Ford is doing is not entirely new. Most of what they've talked about has been done before.
Done before by Tesla and by Chinese companies like Xiaopeng. And Abdul-Samad says that means Ford can learn from them.
So I think it is conceivable that they could hit that $30,000 price point.
And this is really important to Ford and similar companies. They're in a global race with Chinese automakers, which are making electric vehicles very well and very affordably. Those vehicles aren't currently for sale in the U.S., but automakers have customers around the world. Farley has said before that competing with those Chinese rivals is essential to Ford's future. Standing on that stage in Louisville after talking about how hard it is to build a cheap EV, Jim Farley went on.
But we need to do it and be sustainable and make money.
By sustainable, he wasn't emphasizing that EVs are cleaner than similar gas cars and better for the climate.
We're talking about a vehicle that can sustain itself, have strong profits, so all of our workers and the community here has actually a sustainable future.
Ford and some other legacy automakers have been losing money on EVs, and that was even before the Trump administration started rolling back support for them, like by ending the federal tax credit for EV buyers. But this vehicle, Ford says, will be different. Maybe. It's a bet, Farley acknowledged, in an industry with no guarantees. Camila Dominowski, NPR News, Louisville, Kentucky.
Support for All Tech Considered comes from ARM, committed to delivering innovative, advanced computing designed to enable worldwide companies to unleash the capabilities and experiences of AI. The future of AI is built on ARM. ARM.com.
You're listening to All Things Considered from NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from the station and from Visit St. Pete Clearwater, Florida, where white sand beaches meet the arts, from the Dali Museum to more than 500 public murals. More at visitspc.com. From the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, RWJF is a national philanthropy working toward a future where health is no longer a privilege, but a right. Learn more at rwjf.org. From Progressive Insurance, where drivers can compare direct rates using Progressive's rate comparison tool. Customers can see options and rates side by side. More at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. And from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation at macfound.org.
Programming here on WQCS is supported by listeners like you. Visit our website to make a one-time donation, become a sustaining member. You can even donate a vehicle at WQCS.org. And thank you.
Hi, this is Steve Inskeep with NPR News. Any good news organization should bring you points of view that you agree with and points of view that you don't. Facts you approve and facts that make you uncomfortable. Our job is to bring you the full picture in context so you can decide. This is NPR.
For NPR News on the Treasure Coast, count on 88.9 WQCS and WQCS.org.
Your home for NPR News and Talk on the Treasure Coast. This is 88.9 FM, WQCS, Fort Pierce, Vero Beach, Stewart. Online at WQCS.org.
Putin's objective here is not to reach a peace agreement. He's trying to recreate the Russian Empire.
What are the stakes for both Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump walking into a summit in Alaska on Friday?
Today's Tuesday, August 12th, and this is All Things Considered from NPR News.
I'm Mary Louise Kelly.
And I'm Ari Shapiro. Ahead this hour, to dredge or not to dredge in Mobile Bay, Alabama.
We're not against economic development. I'd love to see Mobile grow, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, and the way they are doing it is wrong.
Also, crime writer Karen Slaughter grew up in small-town Georgia.
Her latest novel takes us deep into a fictional county in the state where the locals are great at backhanded compliments.
I wanted to capture all the things that I loved and hated about growing up in a small town myself.
Well, bless your heart after the news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. President Trump's federal takeover of law enforcement in Washington, D.C. is officially underway. The arrival of National Guard troops has some hopeful the city will see improvements, while others worry that a short-term blitz could do more harm than good. NPR's Brian Mann reports.
I spent this day talking to people who are living on the street here in Washington. Many of them say they don't have any place to go. There aren't shelters that they feel comfortable staying in. Advocacy groups agree that there are very few resources right now, and there have been more deep cuts to the social programs that support people, especially with mental health and addiction issues. The concern now is that if this action moves forward, these people could be swept up. Many of them could wind up in jails or incarcerated.
That's NPR's Brian Mann reporting. A small number of Russian troops has slipped through Ukraine's defensive lines on the main battlefront in the east of the country. NPR's Greg Myrie reports Ukraine acknowledges the breach, but says it doesn't amount to a major Russian breakthrough.
The Russian troops found a gap in Ukrainian lines outside the eastern city of Pokrovsk, a key battleground for the past year. Ukraine's military says the Russian forces are operating in small groups of 10 to 15 fighters and do not have sufficient numbers to take and hold territory. The Russians are advancing incrementally in several places, but have not been able to capture Pokrovsk or other cities in the past year. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russian leader Vladimir Putin may be talking about a possible peace deal. But Zelensky says all the signs point to additional military operations by Russia. Greg Myrie, NPR News, Kyiv.
Authorities say the gunman in the shooting at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta last Friday died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Shemaine Cruz from member station WABE reports officials say the shooter had wanted to send a message against COVID-19 vaccines.
The Georgia Bureau of Investigation says 30-year-old Patrick Joseph White broke into a locked safe to get his father's weapons and used them to fire 500 shots, with nearly 200 hitting 6 CDC buildings. White's family called the police several weeks before the shooting after he verbalized thoughts of suicide. GBI Director Chris Hosey says authorities later found written documents referencing the COVID-19 vaccine.
There was no direct threat, but it was his making the public aware of his discontent with the vaccines.
No CDC employees were hurt in the shooting, but a responding police officer was shot and killed. For NPR News, I'm Shemaine Cruz in Atlanta.
At the close on Wall Street, the Dow was up 483 points. This is NPR News. The 8th Kennedy Center honorees will be announced on Wednesday. President Trump posted the news today on social media. NPR's Elizabeth Blair reports the honors have long been considered prestigious Lifetime Achievement Awards in the arts.
Traditionally, artistic excellence has been the main criterion for the awards. Past honorees include Steven Spielberg, Quincy Jones, and Rita Moreno. Honorees are usually living artists when they receive the award. Trump has floated the names Babe Ruth and Elvis Presley as possible recipients. Trump posted that, quote, tremendous work is being done to prepare for the honors, but the Kennedy Center staff was caught off guard by the announcement, according to a person familiar with the situation who spoke on the condition of anonymity for fear of professional repercussions. They're worried they won't have enough time to sell tickets and sponsorships. The Kennedy Center Honors has traditionally been the performing arts venue's biggest fundraiser. Elizabeth Blair, NPR News, Washington.
YouTube says it's testing out a new age verification system in the U.S. that relies on artificial intelligence. The social media site says it will use the technology to distinguish between adults and minors based on the types of videos they watch. The system is designed to only work when users are logged into their accounts. It will also make its age assessments regardless of the birth date someone might have entered when signing up. Recapping stocks on Wall Street, the Dow up 483 points at the close today. The Nasdaq rose 296. This is NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Lodestar Foundation, inspired by the principle that helping someone else less fortunate is a path to a happier, healthier, and more meaningful life. Learn more at lodestarfoundation.org.
I was stunned. It was 100% unjustified. It was politically motivated.
It's a pain when you have to come in and actually worry about it. Like, oh, who's going to be on the job today?
The two missions together cost the American taxpayer about $750 million.
Can't get enough news and information? WQCS is NPR News for the Treasure Coast. Help to keep the information flowing 24/7 with your support. Visit WQCS.org.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Ari Shapiro.
And I'm Mary Louise Kelly. 2 minutes. That is how long President Trump says it will take him to figure out whether Russian President Vladimir Putin is serious about finding a way to end his war with Ukraine. The details are still scarce, but Putin and Trump are set to meet this Friday in Alaska. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was not invited. I want to bring in someone who was in the room the last time that Trump sat down with Putin. That was Helsinki back in 2018. John Bolton was serving then as President Trump's national security advisor. Ambassador Bolton, great to speak with you again.
Well, thanks for having me.
So what lessons did you take from that summit in Helsinki that perhaps Trump might wish to heed this time around?
Well, this time, Trump is more the central actor, I think. He views this as a potential way of getting a resolution to the war in Ukraine that could lead to a Nobel Peace Prize, but it's a very advantageous meeting for Putin as well. I think he realizes he probably intentionally or unintentionally pushed Trump a little bit too far and not agreeing to a ceasefire over the past 6 months, and he's going to try and reel him back in. He's obviously presented some elements of a plan, at least to Steve Witkoff, who brought them back in some confusion from Moscow.
The envoy who was just meeting with President Putin in Moscow. Go on. Mm-hmm.
So we'll probably see a more extended version of that plan, and Trump will decide whether it's something that he likes and whether he'll present it to Zelensky.
I gather you believe that Trump has already made a mistake by virtue of holding this summit on U.S. soil. And I'm curious why, because that would seem to give Trump something of home court advantage.
Well, I think he's giving an international pariah, leader of a rogue state which invaded Ukraine unprovoked and has been excluded from these kinds of diplomatic encounters for years now, and is giving him a platform and an opportunity that Trump may not realize for Putin to try and work his KGB training to get an advantage here. If Putin convinces Trump that he legitimately wants peace, but presents a plan that's unacceptable to Zelensky, by having the first mover advantage, which is what this summit gives Putin, it could put Zelensky and Ukraine in an untenable position.
How big a deal is it that Zelensky won't be there? I mean, can you end a war being fought in Ukraine without Ukraine at the table?
Look, I think earlier this year we saw Trump and Putin speaking without consulting Zelensky, and Putin actually made a lot of progress there. Remember, what Putin's objective here is not to reach a peace agreement. He's trying to recreate the Russian Empire. And if he can back Trump away from providing U.S. military assistance to Ukraine, including critically military intelligence, that would be a huge victory from his point of view.
To the point that President Trump says he will, and I quote, probably in the first 2 minutes, know whether a peace deal can be reached, that he will be able to read Putin that fast. What do you think?
Sure. Well, that's the way Trump does things. He doesn't. He's not going to read extensive briefing papers for this summit, which, by the way, is probably the fastest summit put together in recent history, certainly that I can recall. Basically, 9 days from when the idea came up in the Witkoff meeting.
1 week from when we all learned about it, when he announced it.
So I think this is Trump believing that he can read the other side. He views international relations as basically being the personal relations between heads of state. He did essentially the same thing with Kim Jong-un the first time he met with him in Singapore in the first term, and came out later and said the two of them had fallen in love.
So it seems pretty clear what a win would look like for Trump. He secures some kind of agreement. He gets to walk away and say that was a great meeting and I've ended the war and let me, claim my Nobel Peace Prize. What are the risks for Trump at this summit?
Well, I think the risks are actually pretty minimal. If he thinks he's got, with his own modifications, I think one thing Putin will try and do is get buy-in from Trump by if Trump gives a suggestion or a change, Putin will do everything he can to agree to it. He'd love for Trump to come out of this meeting thinking it's his plan. That would be the ideal outcome. But the risk is if he says Putin's not interested, he can pull out of the diplomatic negotiations. He can say a pox on both your houses. And as I mentioned, he can cut off U.S. military assistance to Ukraine. On Monday, Trump was once again very critical of Zelensky for keeping the war going, for senseless reasons like maintaining Ukrainian freedom and independence.
Although, is there a challenge for Trump here in that he seems to want a deal more than Putin does?
Well, I think you can't get a Nobel Peace Prize unless you get the deal. But from Trump's point of view, if he thinks that if Putin convinces him that he's sincere, whether he is or not, and Trump then takes the deal to Zelensky, who rejects it, he can say, "I've done everything." Again, on Monday, he referred to the war as Biden's war. And that he didn't even commit himself to participate in a meeting between Zelensky and Putin, which he repeated endlessly during the 2024 campaign that he would do. He'd get the two of them in a room and solve it in 24 hours. He's even backed away from that now.
Can you tell from the outside now, but can you tell who Trump is listening to on this? Who is advising him on what the strategy should be going in?
Well, I assume anybody who's in the senior ranks in the national security community should be, but I'm not aware that they're having NSC meetings on this or that Trump's really listening to anybody other than Steve Witkoff, who took the wrong message back, apparently, from what Putin intended at their meeting last Wednesday.
And has had zero diplomatic experience until this year.
But he's a friend of Trump's.
Game this up from Vladimir Putin's point of view. Understanding none of us are inside Vladimir Putin's head. What are the risks for him?
I think his main risk is that Trump leaves the meeting unalterably opposed to what Putin has come with. If Putin can convince him that he's sincere, that he wants peace, and that his plan is reasonable, then I think he's brought Trump over to his side again. It's the two old friends, as Trump thought they were going into this second term, have reached an agreement that looks reasonable, and now the Europeans, and particularly Ukraine, should accept it.
That is former National Security Advisor John Bolton. John Bolton, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
A remarkable object is rocketing through our solar system. It's a comet known as 3I Atlas. NASA caught a sharp image of it, which is striking because astronomer David Jewett says that's like glimpsing a rifle bullet for 1,000th of a second. Jewett is lead author of a forthcoming paper about the object in the astrophysical journal Letters, and he's here to share his team's finding with us. Welcome.
Hello.
This is only the third interstellar object observed entering our solar system, but we don't know where in the universe it came from. How do you know for sure that it came from outside the solar system?
The key signature is that it's traveling really, really fast relative to the sun. So it's going so fast that the gravity of the sun cannot hold on to it. Came in at about 40 miles per second, and that's just way too fast for the sun's gravity to be able to hold it back.
And that kind of points to the challenge of capturing it. How extraordinary is it to actually have an image of something going at that speed?
Well, we thought objects like this might be out there for decades, maybe centuries. But we didn't see anything like that until the first one, the famous one, Oumuamua, in 2017. Very exciting because it's literally the tip of the iceberg. So this is the start of the study of a totally new population of bodies that we can look at with our telescope. So it's very exciting for that reason.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing that astronomers have always believed these things are out there, but it's only in the last decade that images of them have been caught, 3 of them. So how does this expand the potential for scientific discovery?
Well, it just reveals the population for the first time. So we can begin to try to measure them and try to understand them. And we have all these questions that we'd like to answer about them. Not just where are they from, but how many of them are there? We think there's probably a huge number of them. How big are they? And, the first 2 look completely different from each other. So the first one, Oumuamua, looked like basically a rock, an asteroid with no sign of any material coming out of it. Second one, Borisov, looked just like a regular comet in the solar system. So I think many people, including me, were wondering, well, what's the third one going to be like?
And what's it like? What's this third one like?
It's actually much more like the second one than the first one. So it has ice in the nucleus, and the ice gets warmed by the sun and it turns into a gas. The gas streams away from the nucleus and it blows out bits of dust. And then the bits of dust reflect sunlight and we see it as a kind of a cloud or a coma surrounding the object. So it's an ice-containing body. It looks like a comet, so we think it is a comet, but it's a comet that doesn't come from our solar system. It comes from somebody else's planetary system, somewhere else in the Milky Way, some probably very long time ago.
You are in your 60s. You've been at this for a while. What's it like to finally have this new area of research just open up to you for the first time?
Yeah, it's very nice, of course. It's happened before, right? So we found the Kuiper Belt also in my lifetime. So it gives you this recognition that the solar system is even though you think we know everything about it, we've sent a spacecraft here and a spacecraft there, gives you this recognition that actually we don't know much about the solar system. So these objects, even though they're not from the solar system, they're in the solar system. We have a lot of them, and we're going to be able to study them, figure out how many there really are, and maybe figure out where they came from.
Well, if we assume that many more of these objects will soon be detected and studied and documented, is this one, 3I Atlas, going to mean anything special to you, or will it just be one in a long lineage?
It will fade away, So now we have 3. When we have 300, for me, the field will be boring, right, by that time. And then I won't work on it anymore. Other people can have it, as far as I'm concerned.
David Jewett leads analysis of images captured by the Hubble Space Telescope, and he's a professor of astronomy at UCLA. Thank you so much for talking with us.
Okay, you're welcome.
You're listening to All Things Considered from NPR News.
Support comes from Steve Smith Air Conditioning. Since 1990, Steve Smith Air Conditioning has been the home of fast, dependable, and honest service, specializing in high-efficiency replacements and tune-ups. Online at stevesmithac.com.
Are you looking to make healthy choices on a budget? Introducing the SNAP Ed program, empowering families to eat well, save money, and live healthier lives. Discover simple ways to stretch your food budget while still enjoying delicious meals. A team of nutrition experts will guide you through interactive workshops with cooking demonstrations, teaching you how to prepare affordable, wholesome meals that your family will love. All classes are free to attend. To learn more and find a class near you, visit stophunger.org.
Support comes from Hillmore Optical, just south across town on US 1 in Port St. Lucie, providing complete eye exams, designer frames, and lenses to the Treasure Coast for over 30 years. For details, go to hillmoreoptical.com. Your vision is our passion.
The Promise program at Indian River State College offers tuition-free AA or AS degrees to high school graduates across our community. You can help make this opportunity a reality for even more students. Donate today to support education, workforce development, and a brighter future for our next generation. Visit giving.irsc.edu to give. Support the Promise program. Invest in a brighter future.
Madeline Potter's ancestors were nomads.
They became known as Egyptians, and then Egyptian got shortened to Gypsy.
Paul Theroux lived as an expat.
It teaches you humility. It teaches you negotiation. It teaches you how to deal with other people.
And Elaine Shalino takes us to her favorite art at the Louvre.
It's the Mesopotamian Wonder Woman.
On the next Travel with Rick Steves.
Every Thursday at noon and Fridays at 9 p.m. on WQCS.
Support for NPR comes from the station and from the Lodestar Foundation, inspired by the principle that helping someone else less fortunate is a path to a happier, healthier, and more meaningful life. Learn more at lodestarfoundation.org. From Eric and Wendy Schmidt through the Schmidt Family Foundation, working toward a healthy, resilient, secure world for all, on the web at theschmidt.org. And from the Skoll Foundation, dedicated to powering social innovators to transform the world. Learn more at skoll.org.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Ari Shapiro.
And I'm Mary Louise Kelly. Crime fiction queen Karen Slaughter's new book opens on a hot summer night in Georgia. It is Madison Dalrymple's 15th birthday. She's got a big night planned with her best friend, and then both girls disappear. The police find their bikes abandoned, glow-in-the-dark beads still snapped onto the spokes, pink streamers still hanging from the handlebars. Then the police find blood. All that, plus the title, We Are All Guilty Here, clue you in that there will be no easy or happy answers to what's happened to the girls. Karen Slaughter, welcome.
Thank you.
You have been writing crime novels for how many years now?
Oh boy, do we have to say 25 years.
25 years. Is a scene like that one that I just summarized still tough to write?
Well, yes and no. I mean, part of the fun of being a writer is being in the headspace of someone completely unlike you and trying to capture their voice. The other part of the fun is, taking out your own angst as a person. And I clearly remember being that age and wanting to get out of my small town and having incredibly stupid plans of how that was going to happen. So in a lot of ways, it was fun to write. And the bad part doesn't really happen until the end. So I had some fun being in Madison's head for a little while.
Yeah. Go back to the setting. This book is set in Clifton County, Georgia. I grew up in Georgia. Am I right in thinking there is no Clifton County, right?
There is not. I mean, we have
up.
more counties than any other state but Texas, but that's not one of them. Yeah, I wanted something that was fictional so I could lie and actually not have to worry about people saying I got Main Street wrong, that if you take a left, you're going to be on a different road. But I wanted to capture all the things that I loved and hated about growing up in a small town myself, Jonesboro, Georgia, and talk about that existence. And I'd be lying if I didn't say I was thinking a little bit about the Murdaughs and how you had this one family controlling this town for generations and how that corruption eventually burned the town out. So I wanted to have a family that was running things, and you have good ones and bad ones, and the rich Cliftons and the poor Cliftons, and they're in law enforcement and in the law and all over the place. And so that was really my goal of writing Clifton County, was to talk about this family, sort of like a Yellowstone, but in the South.
Well, my producer, who grew up in a small town in South Carolina, would like you to know that you completely nailed small southern town dynamics. She was like, oh my God, the gossip and the backhanded compliments and the way everybody is in everybody's business. Totally accurate.
Well, bless her heart. Tell her I said thank you.
Bless her heart is one of those backhanded compliments, usually. Usually what follows is not so nice.
She did grow up in the Carolinas, so I am being kind.
Yeah. All right, so stay with the Clifton family and introduce us to Emmylou Clifton. She's a cop. Her dad, Gerald Clifton, is the sheriff. I loved her. I thought she was totally tough and also totally relatable.
Well, she's really having a very elder millennial Gen X existence because she's raising her young son and she's taking care of her parents who are starting to get into that elderly category. So she's balancing that a lot. When we meet her, she's in a bad marriage and she's really just stuck in very bad places. But one thing she's good at is being a police officer. She's a deputy in the sheriff's department. And she has a really wonderful relationship with her father. It's interesting because a lot of times when you hear advice or things like that from your parent, your first response is to automatically hate them. And, there's that old saying that as soon as I learned my mother was right about everything, I had a daughter telling me I was wrong. But Emmy and Gerald have a very good relationship. He's a mentor to her in policing and in life.
So if I could get a little bit into your background and what you're trying to do here. I looked, you were the same age as I am, exactly. And I grew up in Atlanta, so it sounds like about an hour west of where you grew up. Is that right?
About, yeah.
Yeah. I mention it because that means we both grew up with what became known as the Atlanta child murders, 1979 to 1981, and they kept pulling the bodies of children out of the woods and out of the river. It changed my childhood, made my parents less willing just to let me ride my bike around until dark because they wanted to know where the kids were. Did you have a similar experience?
Absolutely. There was a definite before and after. And, of course, the terrifying commercials, because we're Gen X, right? So our parents had to be reminded to be parents to their children, saying, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are? Even though, as you said, I was an hour away from Atlanta, where most of the crimes were happening, there were some bodies that floated down the Chattahoochee and got as far as into the top part of Clayton County into Forest Park. And Jonesboro is in Clayton County, so that touched a little bit on our community. But it made us very wary of strangers where we weren't before.
Well, and did it make you more of a writer or influence that decision? I am asking because I think it played a role in my decision to become a journalist, to try to understand what was happening in my community, in my town. It sounds like maybe for you it was part of your becoming interested in crime and also the people who fight it.
Absolutely. And, I read all sorts of crime novels, probably much younger than I should have. I mean, no 10-year-old should be reading Helter Skelter. It all went hand in hand for me, but definitely the Atlanta child murders were seminal in my development as both a reader and a writer.
People who haven't read your books but are listening to us talk about one of them may be surprised to learn your books often end, I won't say with a happy ending, but let's say on a note of hope. How hard is that to pull off when you're writing about such dark things?
It used to be a lot easier. Given where we are right now, it's hard to find hope in places. And I think with Emmy especially, I'm working on the second novel in this series right now, I wanted to leave her in a place where there was a feeling that now her life was really starting. I wrote about her at very different times in her life, and I wanted to talk about what it's like to be a woman in your 30s and your 40s, and then, not that I've gotten there, but in your 60s. I mean, there are things that really bother you when you're 30 that by the time you hit 40, you just don't care anymore. Parenting being one of them. Are they alive? Can they pay their bills? Are they responsible human beings? That becomes your criteria, as opposed to some micromanaging that might take place when you're in your 30s. So,
yeah, like the rest is gravy as long as they're healthy and paying their taxes.
Are they in prison?
Good.
Yeah, exactly. So, in these, her perspective has shifted. I don't know a woman alive who would not be a millionaire if they had a quarter for every time they worried about what a man thought about them in their 20s. And by their 30s, they're just like, okay, well, what's on Netflix?
Karin Slaughter. Her new novel is We Are All Guilty Here. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
This is NPR News.
President Trump and Russia's leader, Vladimir Putin, are meeting in Alaska this week. Trump is counting on his deal-making abilities.
Probably in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made.
How will you know that?
Because that's what I do. I make deals.
But Putin is known for his own negotiating tactics. That's on the next Morning Edition from NPR News.
Now there's a new way to connect to your favorite NPR podcasts, including bonus episodes from select shows. It's NPR Plus. Enjoy sponsor-free listening while helping to support local news and information. Heard here on 88.9 WQCS. To find out more about NPR Plus and to become a WQCS NPR Plus member, visit our website. Go to WQCS.org. And thank you for your support.
An FBI memo reveals Jeffrey Epstein had over 1,000 victims, yet the Justice Department says it will not release the remaining Epstein files despite public pressure. We hear from one of the survivors.
It feels like we're not being considered and we're not being included.
Annie Farmer tells us what she wants to see happen on the next Morning Edition from NPR News.
Beginning at 5 on 88.9 FM.
Live from NPR News in Culver City, California, I'm Dwayne Brown. After months of delay, the State Department has released its annual human rights report on countries around the world. As NPR's Graham Smith tells us, there are big changes.
NPR obtained internal memos earlier this year detailing instructions on slashing the scope of the human rights reports, removing whole categories of violations, and minimizing documentation of other abuses. Editors spent months deleting thousands of violations. Among the changes seen in these new reports, gone are citations of poor prison conditions in El Salvador and government corruption in Hungary. Violations of freedom of assembly are no longer tracked in China. NPR analysis shows the new reports are 2/3 as long as previous iterations. Rights activists say these changes show the U.S. abandoning its position as a leading defender of human rights. Graham Smith, NPR News.
In Pennsylvania, questions remain about what caused a massive explosion at U.S. Steel yesterday that killed 2 people. Governor Josh Shapiro joined local leaders today at the site, along with the CEO of the company, vowing to get to the bottom of what caused the deadly explosion.
U.S. Steel is committed to 2 things. Number one, getting to the bottom of what occurred and ensuring a safe plant for their workers when they return. And number 2, making sure that the broader community is protected going forward.
That's Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. The explosion was powerful enough to shake nearby homes. It also injured more than 10 other steel workers, including one who spent hours trapped in the rubble. The cause remains under investigation. On Wall Street, stocks finished higher today as inflation was mostly unchanged in July with help from lower gas and grocery prices. The Dow up more than 1%. This is NPR. A federal appeals court has ruled Arkansas can enforce its ban on certain gender-affirming treatments for transgender minors. From Little Rock Public Radio, Daniel Breen reports.
The ruling by the full Eighth Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals relies heavily on a Supreme Court opinion earlier this year, upholding a similar law in Tennessee. In 2021, Arkansas became the first state in the nation to outlaw gender-affirming medical care such as puberty blockers and hormone therapy for transgender minors. The law survived a veto from the state's Republican governor, who said the law amounted to government overreach, but it was permanently blocked by the courts in 2023. The appeals court disagreed with that ruling, saying the law doesn't violate the Constitution and falls under the state of Arkansas's responsibility to, quote, protect the well-being of minors. For NPR News, I'm Daniel Breen in Little Rock.
Police here in Southern California say about $30,000 worth of stolen Labubus were recovered today from a home in San Bernardino County. Police say the suspects were planning to resell the popular collectible dolls and ship them across the country. Detectives found 14 boxes of the toothy little monsters, which can be worth a lot of money, especially rare and limited edition versions, which by themselves have sold for $30,000 at auction. Well, stocks finished higher today on Wall Street. This is NPR.
Do you see a new vehicle in your future? When you finally commit to making that purchase, remember WQCS and our vehicle donation program as an option for your old car, truck, or SUV. The proceeds will be donated to WQCS, and you'll feel good knowing that your support helps to ensure future programming right here in our community. Donating is easy. Call 772-462-7813 to arrange free pickup or donate online at WQCS.org.
Forget text messages. Catherine Kuchenbecker is developing tech to reach out and touch you.
You could send not just a little buzz, but like a pat or eventually a caress or a congratulatory one, like a high five that comes in over your chat.
Ideas about our skin and how we interact with the world. That's next time on the TED Radio Hour from NPR.
Every Wednesday at noon on WQCS.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Fisher Investments. As a fiduciary, Fisher Investments is obligated to act in their client's best interest. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Investing in securities involves the risk of loss. From Indeed, committed to giving job listings increased visibility with relevant candidates through its sponsored jobs feature. Learn more at Indeed.com/NPR. And from the Skoll Foundation, dedicated to powering social innovators to transform the world. Learn more at skoll.org.
It's All Things Considered. From NPR News, I'm Mary Louise Kelly.
And I'm Ari Shapiro. Inflation remained stubbornly high last month, and there are signs that President Trump's tariffs are pushing some prices even higher. Earlier this month, Trump fired the economist who led the office that crunches the inflation numbers. Trump's pick to take over that job is drawing complaints that he's too partisan. NPR's Scott Horsley is here with the latest. And Scott, let's just start with today's inflation report. What does it say?
Ari, it tells us the overall cost of living continued to climb in July. It would have climbed even more, but a drop in gasoline prices helped to keep a lid on the headline inflation number, which came in at 2.7%, the same as the month before. If you strip out volatile energy and food prices, however, core inflation increased to 3.1% in July, which was the highest it's been in 5 months. Economist Michael Puglisi, who's with Wells Fargo, says that's not what inflation watchdogs want to see, but it is a far cry from the even higher inflation we suffered through a few years ago.
So if you're a glass half full type person, I think confidence should be going up that that's not where we're headed. If you're a glass half empty, it's that core inflation is moving in the wrong direction, and it was already above target.
That puts the Federal Reserve on a bit of a tightrope as it tries to both curb inflation while also propping up the sagging job market. Investors are betting this inflation report was tame enough that the Fed will be able to cut interest rates next month. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rallied, gaining more than 480 points, or a little over 1%, and both the S&P 500 index and the NASDAQ closed at record highs.
And where do you see the evidence of Trump's tariffs in the inflation numbers?
The Treasury Department came out with a report today showing that the government collected $28 billion in tariffs in July. That money has to come from somewhere, and some of it is coming out of the pockets of consumers. We saw higher prices in July for a lot of imported products like furniture and toys. And while overall grocery prices were down a little bit during the month, the foods we import, like coffee and bananas, got more expensive. Of course, the president ordered a new round of tariffs earlier this month, including a 50% tax on goods from Brazil, a big coffee producer. So we're likely to see some additional price hikes tied to tariffs in the months to come.
These inflation numbers all come from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And last night, President Trump announced plans to put a new person in charge of that bureau. Tell us about him.
Yeah, remember when Trump fired the previous head of the Bureau less than 2 weeks ago after a weaker than expected jobs report, there were a lot of complaints from outside economists who said the firing was unjustified and the kind of move you'd expect to see from an authoritarian regime. Now that Trump has named a possible replacement, those complaints are getting even louder. His pick is an economist named E.J. Antoni from the Heritage Foundation, and he's backed by people like Steve Bannon. Even conservative economists like Kyle Pomerleau, who's with the right-leaning American Enterprise Institute, say Antoni is just too much of a partisan brawler for this particular job.
There's nothing wrong with being partisan, and I think that you can be a partisan and join the administration, but I think you're better fit for other roles. I don't think being highly partisan is a good fit for a highly technical and trusted position, like being the head of the BLS.
Pomerleau also says Antoni lacks the experience to run a big agency like this and has a history of, in his words, either misunderstanding or deliberately misrepresenting government data. If Antoni's confirmed by the Senate, Pomerleau worries it could really damage the credibility of the government statistics.
Investors in the United States, businesses, and the Federal Reserve all make important economic decisions based on the information that comes out of the BLS. And if that information can't be trusted, that makes decision-making for economic actors harder.
Ultimately, Pomerleau says that could wind up hurting the economy that all these numbers are designed to measure.
NPR Scott Horsley, thank you.
You're welcome.
When it comes to recognizing good literature, you've got all kinds of prizes, the National Book Award, the Nobel, the Booker. But when it comes to recognizing truly bad writing, there's the Bulwer-Lytton Fiction Contest for the worst opening sentence of an imaginary novel. Now, usually they would be announcing a winner around now, but after more than 4 decades, the contest has come to an end. Dina Pritchett brings us this remembrance.
Scott Rice taught at San Jose State University, specializing in 18th century English literature. He loves Jane Austen, George Eliot, Charles Dickens. So why did he start a competition for bad writing?
It was just something of a lark. I just, sometimes you get tired of being serious.
Rice launched the Bulwer-Lytton Fiction Contest in 1983.
You just have to write one sentence. It's just like getting to start a fight and not have to finish it.
And it turns out Bad Writing has big fans.
We're getting at least 6,000 entries a year.
And those entries were awful. Here's winner Dave Agans.
He glanced at his unsuspecting guests, his slight smile hiding his hateful mood, his calm eyes hiding his evil intentions, and his smooth skin hiding his tensed muscles, skeletal structure, and internal organs.
Another winner, Lawrence Person.
She had the sort of body that reached out and slapped my face like a 5-pound ham hock tossed from a speeding truck.
And a third, Molly Ringel.
For the first month of Ricardo and Felicity's affair, they greeted one another at every stolen rendezvous with a kiss, a lengthy, ravenous kiss, Ricardo lapping and sucking at Felicity's mouth as if she were a giant cage-mounted water bottle and he were the world's thirstiest gerbil.
Ringel, who's a writer and editor by profession, says there's something about the overstuffed sentences and ridiculous metaphors that take them from painfully awful to hilariously awful.
It actually takes some skill to write sentences as gloriously terrible as these are that have won the contest.
When the contest started all those years ago, it seemed only natural to name it after Edward Bulwer Lytton, author of a sentence that's become a shorthand for bad writing.
It was a dark and stormy night, the opening line of Paul Clifford.
Lillian Nader teaches 19th century British literature at Bates College. She says while Bulwer Lytton has become something of a punchline, he was a celebrity in his day. He pioneered new genres, wrote bestsellers. He even got Dickens to change the ending of Great Expectations.
I just think it's sort of unfortunate that he's been used as a sort of example of really poor writing when, in fact, he has a fair amount to offer.
That being said, UCLA English professor Jonathan Grossman points out that he also did write some really bad lines.
"Do you sup with Glaucus tonight?" said a young man of small stature who wore his tunic in those loose and effeminate folds which proved him to be a gentleman in a coxcomb. What the hell? I don't know.
But Grossman says while we may not want to read Bulwer Lytton, his creativity left a mark on literature.
Which totally goes with the contest, weirdly. Like, they're so inventive in the contest that they kind of capture the spirit of Bulwer Lytton in that regard.
And contest founder Scott Rice says that spirit continued throughout the years.
The contest, I think, has stayed fresh because the people keep reinventing it anew.
Last year's contest was the final one. Rice wants to take a break and read other things. But while the Bulwer Lytton fiction contest has ended, bad writing, like our shimmering memories of the first smile on the lips of a newborn child who, like each of us, is made of stardust, will go on. For NPR News, I'm Dina Pritchett.
You're listening to All Things Considered from NPR News. President Trump's takeover of D.C. law enforcement is not the first time the city has been under tighter federal control. But as NPR's Rachel Treisman reports, those periods were very different from what's happening today.
President Trump said Monday that he's putting D.C.'s Metropolitan Police Department under federal control and deploying the National Guard to protect public safety, even though violent crime is significantly down from its peak in 2023.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse.
Trump has this authority because of home rule, the limited form of self-governance that D.C. has been under for the last half-century. The Home Rule Act allows D.C.'s roughly 700,000 residents to elect their own mayor and city council. But it gives Congress control over the city's laws and budget, and it lets the president temporarily take over the local police force in times of emergency. No president has done that until now, says Sarah Jane Schoenfeld, a public historian of D.C.
It's safe to say that this is unprecedented.
The Constitution gives Congress jurisdiction over D.C., but for much of the 1800s, the city had its own government. Things changed after the Civil War, as D.C. saw a huge influx of black migrants. In 1867, black men got the right to vote in D.C.
It meant that we had African American people running and winning election to office. But there was, also a sort of a growing backlash during this period against increasing rights for black people.
In 1874, Congress put the city under the control of 3 presidentially appointed commissioners. Along with committees in the House and Senate, they ran D.C. for the next century.
So we had no local government for 100 years.
Schoenfeld says that system worked well, but only for people who had connections to it, like white business leaders and homeowners. That continued into the 1960s, by which point D.C. was majority black, says George Derek Musgrove, the co-author of the book Chocolate City, A History of Race and Democracy in the Nation's Capital.
So you have a 3/4 black city, and many of the white residents are liberal on most issues at the time. And it's run by some of the most retrograde members of Congress.
Residents pushed for home rule during the Civil Rights Movement, and in 1973, Congress passed the Home Rule Act. But that opened up some new problems. D.C. had to pay for its own prison and courts, and it couldn't tax commuters or federal property.
And so the city goes bankrupt in the 1990s, primarily because Congress had set up this system that was guaranteed to bankrupt us.
In 1995, Congress created a control board to oversee D.C.'s finances. Its 5 members, appointed by President Bill Clinton, took controversial actions, like firing the superintendent of schools and hundreds of government workers. Here's Schoenfeld.
They were done with a vision of sort of what the city should look like in the future, but not with a lot of attention to the needs of longtime residents.
In 1997, Congress passed a law adjusting D.C.'s financial responsibilities and federal funding. And the control board dissolved in 2001 after the city passed 5 straight balanced budgets. Schoenfeld says these days, federal control tends to be part of D.C.'s problem, not the solution. She hopes Trump's actions will make more people across the country aware of D.C.'s plight, and maybe even support its push for statehood. Rachel Treisman, NPR News.
You're listening to All Things Considered from NPR News.
New listeners and longtime WQCS members, thanks for tuning in. We're NPR for the Treasure Coast. Access all of our HD channels at WQCS.org to listen online or become a new member.
Support comes from FPL, who plans for storm season all year long. From strengthening poles to better withstand severe weather to clearing lines to improve resiliency. Details at FPL.com/storm. FPL, working for you every single day.
On the community calendar, do you know the history of Port St. Lucie? You can visit the Port St. Lucie History Museum and Education Center, located at 2456 Southeast Westmoreland Boulevard. Call 772-877-3020 for hours and see how it all began.
Becoming a WQCS business sponsor not only allows you to spread the word about your business to thousands of WQCS listeners, it also shows that you're committed to supporting public radio here in our community. Our listeners are your best customers. Learn how your business can support 88.9 WQCS. Email Angela Bowen-Brazel at bowenbrazel@irsc.edu.
Hurricane season runs through November 30th. Are you prepared?
It could be some time after a storm till stores are fully restocked. Make sure you have all needed medications on hand before the storm. Have your prescriptions refilled and, if possible, request a larger supply.
Be prepared for tropical weather before the forecast. And if a named storm threatens, count on WQCS News for local up-to-date storm information.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Ari Shapiro.
And I'm Mary Louise Kelly. Dredging waterways for navigation is a centuries-old practice, but a project in South Alabama is drawing criticism and the attention of Congress. Fishing interests and environmentalists want lawmakers to ban the dumping of dredging material in Mobile Bay. They say a federal project to expand and maintain a ship channel is choking the estuary with dredging mud. NPR's Debbie Elliott reports.
A customer waits at the dock as Patrick Gormandy steers his deep water trawler back after a day of shrimping on Mobile Bay along the Alabama Gulf Coast.
You taking the big ones and the mediums? Yeah, give them everything. All right.
He shovels plump shrimp from the boat's holding tank into plastic tubs that look like old-fashioned laundry baskets.
If only there were more of them. Exactly.
He says today's catch is less than half of what he would typically harvest.
It seems that every year is worse than the last. This one's the worst one on record.
Gormandy blames the decline in part on the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which is dredging the channel that allows big ships to get from the Gulf of Mexico into the port of Mobile. The Corps has an environmental permit to put the material they dig out of the channel into other parts of the expansive Mobile Bay.
They have just ruined all the places that we work.
Gormandy, who's 47, has been shrimping these waters since he was a boy and took over his father's boat about 10 years ago. He gets emotional thinking about whether the business can survive.
We're up against a lot of factors. We have overpopulation on land, sewage spills that happen every time it rains too much, and now this dredging operation. As a fisherman, I understand why they should do that, but what they're doing with the material is our problem. You know, we want to leave this bay better than we found it. It's going to be hard to do that.
Gormandy is part of a wide-ranging and unlikely coalition that includes both commercial and recreational fishing interests, property owners, environmental groups, and Republican elected officials. They're lobbying Congress to ban putting dredge material into Mobile Bay. Henry Barnes is the mayor of Bayou La Batre, known as the seafood capital of Alabama.
We're not against economic development. I'd love to see Mobile grow, especially the port. But there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, and the way they are doing it is wrong.
Barnes, who builds and repairs shrimp nets, made a recent trip to Washington, D.C. to meet with lawmakers, including Republican Senator Katie Britt of Alabama. Britt questioned Corps officials about the practice at a recent hearing on Capitol Hill. Barnes says he would like to see fishermen compensated for their losses. He says it's hard enough for the seafood industry to survive as it is without having to battle the federal government, too.
We're fighting foreign imports, domestic regulations out the wazoo. I mean, it's crazy. And every time they put a regulation on it, yeah, people grumble, but they abide by it. But yet, they can come and just dump on us. You know, that's ridiculous. Makes no sense to me.
The group leading the fight is Mobile Baykeeper, which has been monitoring the offshore dredging operation.
All right, let her rip.
Baykeeper Executive Director William Strickland navigates a boat across the Mobile Ship Channel to the dredge pipe outfall.
You can see it from here. See that? Smell it too. All right, go ahead and kill it.
Seabirds flock to a spot where dark mud spews into the water.
Now we're downwind, so you can smell how, like, that's the smell of low oxygen, dead stuff. And then you can see the birds trying to pick whatever they can out of that heaping mess.
Baykeeper has been trying to get the Corps to stop the practice for years and is now asking Congress to intervene. The group has also filed a notice of intent to sue. Strickland says they don't want to stop the dredging, just where the spoil goes. He says the Corps should use the material for coastal restoration projects or take it offshore to the open Gulf.
They know how to do it. We can keep our channel open. We can have a healthy ecosystem. We want to have both.
But Corps officials say keeping the dredge material in Mobile Bay is good for the ecosystem. Justin McDonald is Chief of Civil Works with the Corps' Mobile District.
Sediment renourishes the system, and you need to keep the sediment in the system. It's not good to haul it out. So that's where the real disconnect in the kind of the public perception right now is.
McDonald says they dredge the equivalent of about 200,000 large dump truck loads a year on average. Some of it is taken to the Gulf and some goes for coastal restoration. But he says the sheer volume of what they dredge means most of it is put in Mobile Bay.
I think the environmental impact is temporary and short-term in nature while we're out there placing it, but it's actually beneficial for the long-term health of the bay.
The Port of Mobile supports the project because it will allow it to accommodate the much larger ships now coming through the Panama Canal. That's an economic driver, says former Republican Congressman Bradley Byrne, president of the Mobile Chamber of Commerce. He says he trusts assessments from the Mobile Bay National Estuary Program and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
And they're the ones that are going to be the most concerned about, what is this doing to the biological life in the bay? And they have signed off on this.
Byrne, who lives on Mobile Bay, has heard complaints from neighbors, but says he hasn't noticed a problem.
There's no more silt around my house on Mobile Bay today than there was when I moved in 24 years ago.
Still, the coalition fighting what they call mud dumping is gaining traction.
These look great. I'd like to get 5 pounds of Big Daddies if we can.
That's Republican State Senator Chris Elliott buying local shrimp at a rustic waterfront seafood market in Bon Secours on the eastern shore of Mobile Bay.
This isn't good for the bay. This is universally almost opposed by the people that live here, and there are better ways to do it.
Elliott wants to see Congress stop it, but he says the Alabama legislature could have a role because state waters are at stake.
And I just want to make sure that what we're doing for the big guys, for the port, to keep that up and operating so the big container ships are coming in, which I'm fully in favor of and supportive of, but that it doesn't squeeze out these locals, these guys that have been here forever, that are trying to make their living catching seafood.
A local heritage, he says, that's worth protecting. Debbie Elliott, NPR News, Bon Secours, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to All Things Considered from NPR News.
Support for NPR comes from the station and from BritBox presenting Outrageous, a new BritBox original drama based on the scandalous true story of England's infamous Mitford sisters. Streaming this and more original series at BritBox.com. From the NPR Wine Club, now shipping to additional states. Whether purchasing a few wines or joining the wine club, every purchase supports NPR. Available to adults 21 or older. NPRWineClub.org. From Capital One with the Capital One Saver Card. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And from the William T. Grant Foundation, supporting research to improve the lives of young people at WTGrantFDN.org.
It's now even easier to enjoy WQCS no matter where you are. Listen at work with your PC or with a smart speaker. For a mobile WQCS experience, listen with your smartphone. To find out more, go to WQCS.org.
At NPR, it's our job to be skeptical. So tell me, why is this not already happening? And provide context to the day's headlines.
Where does this leave U.S. efforts to try to broker a ceasefire to end the war? Where does it stand?
This is independent reporting you can trust. This is NPR.
For NPR News on the Treasure Coast, trust 88.9 WQCS and WQCS.org.
NPR for the Treasure Coast since 1982. You're listening to 88.9 FM. Line at WQCS.org.
Trump administration will relentlessly pursue